So now that we have our watch list defined inside of our database, let's go ahead and make use of it by adding a button within our movie card that allows a user to add a movie to their watch list. So let's go ahead and hide our browser back away. We can hide our database directory there. And let's first go ahead and just jump into our controllers. And we should now have a watch list controller right here. Let's grab our HTTP context import, and actually, come to think of it, we should have created this controller here as a resource. So let's go ahead and just delete it out temporarily, move that to our trash, jump back into our terminal, stop our server, clear that out, node ace make controller watch list. And we could do -r or -- resource to add in resourceful methods, which would be index, create, update, delete, so on and so forth. But really for this, all that we want is an index for when it comes time to list out the watch list page, a toggle method to allow the user to toggle between having the movie in their watch list and not having it in their watch list. And then we're also going to want another toggle specifically for just whether or not the movie was watched. Okay, let's go ahead and boot our server back up, npm run dev, hide that away, jump into our new controller, and there we go. So right now our main target is to allow a user to toggle whether or not a movie is inside of their watch list. So what we're going to want is our response so that we can redirect the user back after they perform some action, our params so that we can get the IDs applicable, as well as auth so that we can get the user applicable too. So from our params, we're going to want to be able to get the movie ID, and then we're also going to want our user ID from our auth user.id there. And right after our user, we're going to put an exclamation point because we're going to use the middleware to ensure that in order for us to reach this method, the user is actually authenticated. And that will just essentially remove the undefined portion from the type. Then we'll want to check and see whether or not a watch list for that user in this movie already exists. So we'll do watch list equals await auth.user. We'll add another exclamation point to assert that we do have a user, and then do related watch list dot, and we'll query where we have the movie ID, and we only care about the first, so we'll just grab the first there. So there's plenty of ways that you can actually query that. That's one way. You could, of course, also just do it directly from the watch list model. So for example, we could do await watch list, import that from our model, query where, and then check for both the movie ID as well as the user ID there, and grab the first, whatever your preference is. This one here is probably actually a little bit cleaner, so we'll go ahead and cut that out and paste it in and use this one. Okay, so let's scroll down a little bit. If we have a watch list, so if watch list actually exists, then what we want to do is just delete it. So we'll await watch list delete. Otherwise, if it doesn't exist, then we just want to create it. So we can await watch list dot create and pass in our movie ID as well as our user ID there. Once we've done that, we can go ahead and return response, redirect the user right back to where they were. Okay, let's give that a save. Now let's jump into our routes, and let's go ahead and put this after our movies. So do router dot, and this will be a post slash watch lists slash, and we only need the movie ID that we want to toggle. And then we'll do another slash and specify that we specifically just want this route to be for toggling. Import our watch list controller, scroll down to there, hit tab to auto import that, and pass this our toggle handler as watch lists toggle. All right, give that a save. Then let's go ahead and scroll down to our components, go into our movie card, and down to our button. Let's just go ahead and give this button here a copy, and we'll put this action above it, but we only want to show this button if we have an auth user. So we'll go ahead and end our if there and paste our button in. For right now, we don't have a way to actually tell whether or not the user has this movie in their watch list, so we'll just do a strict add to watch list button, and we'll make that conditional here in a little bit. For our href, we no longer want that to be a route, and we probably don't want the class margin top on that either. We'll remove it from our button below and wrap this whole section here in a div with that applied here momentarily. But we do want this button to have a type of submit, and we also want to wrap this button in a form method. Post action will be route watchlists.toggle, and we need to specify the movie ID as the param, which is our movie.id, and the form, add in our CSRF field, give our button an indent, and end the form. All right, let's go ahead and pause here, give that a save, hide our text editor back away, jump into our browser, and whoops, I did Watchlists. Jump back into my text editor here, and let me add the L right there. Okay, back into the browser, give that a refresh. There we go. All right, so yeah, we do need to fix the margin there, but if we right click somewhere, inspect, let's jump into our network tab, go into XHR, click the gear, persist our log, and let's go ahead and click on add to watch list. Oh, right, that's not an XHR, that's a form. So let's go back to all, and we can see that it did a post request out to our /toggle. If we hover over that toggle, we can see the full URL is watchlist/420/toggle, and then that redirected us with a 302 right back to where we were, which is our homepage. So that does seem to be working. Let's go ahead and hide this back away and give ourselves a way to determine whether or not this movie is in the user's watch list. let's jump back into our text editor, and we're going to want to find all of the methods where we're using movie card. So I'm going to hold Command-Shift-F to open up Find. It'll be a little search icon right around over here if you have that toolbar enabled. And we'll do a search for !movie.card. And it looks like we have this on, expand this out here momentarily, our resources views homepage, our directors show page, our movies index page, and our writers show page. So first, let's go ahead and jump into our home controller, and we'll take care of that one first. And this is just going to be a conditional preload based off of whether or not we have an authenticated user. So if auth user, if we have an authenticated user, then we'll want to apply to our query.preload our watch list. I'm going to go ahead and break this down so that's a little easier to follow, because inside of our preload watch list, we're also going to have another query where we want to limit the watch lists that are preloaded to just those where the user ID is our auth user !ID. So if we have a user at all, then we want to add to our entire movie query a preload for our watch list, and then specifically to our watch list preload, we want to limit those just where the user ID is the currently authenticated user. This should only ever be one, and we can actually enforce that at the database level here momentarily too, but we'll go ahead and leave it as a list because that's what the relationship here will be expecting. So we'll give that a save. It'll do its formatting. I think it's complaining there because we already used query. Yep. So I'll just call that maybe watch list since it's the watch list specific query. There we go. And now we just want to give this section here a copy. We also need to apply it to our recently released here too. So we can paste it there, go into our directors controller down in the show method. We're going to want to break this query down a little bit and paste our if inside of there. It's like we also need to grab auth out of the HTTP context, give that a save. There we go. Next is our movies controller. All right, this one should just be the index method. And it looks like we're using our get filtered there. So let's go ahead and dive into there by command clicking into it. And at the end of our if chain here, let's just go ahead and paste one more in. And now we need to make our auth user accessible within here. We can either pass that in as a parameter, which would be the most straightforward way, or we can inject our HTTP context into this service. Since we have this as a static method, we'll go ahead and add it as a parameter for right now. So at the end of our parameter list, we'll add in user of type user and import that from our model, or have that be undefined and default it to undefined. Give that a save so that it can do its formatting. And then we just need to switch this to if user and where user. Okay. And then lastly, we have our writers controller, and it should be the show method right there. So we'll give it one more paste and grab auth out of the HTTP context there as well. Nope, we did this one here a little bit different. If won't be here, but rather it will be within the movie's written preload. So we'll want to do query there, query, break that down and paste it in there like so. Give it a save set of formats, and we'll go ahead and switch this one to written since it is specifically for our written movies. All right, so now we should have our watch list preloaded everywhere that we're using our movie card. So now within our movie card, we should be able to tell whether or not the movie is in their watch list by checking to see whether or not watch list has a length. So we can cut that out, do double curly braces, and check whether movie.watchlist has a length. If it does, then we'll say maybe in your watch list. Otherwise, we'll paste in our add to watch list text. Give that a save. And now if we jump into our browser with our coming soon section, we can now see in your watch list here for our button. If we give that another click, it's now back to add to watch list. Give it another click in your watch list. And so now we can scroll through here and give some random clicks to add some to and from our watch list. Let's go ahead and jump into our directors page, go into one specific director. Looks like everything's rendering okay here. Let's add one to our watch list. All right. Seems to have worked there. Let's check out our writers too. Go into someone here. Let's add that to our watch list. Cool. And let's dive into our movies. And okay, it looks like we do have something going on here. So since it's reading length and saying that it's reading from undefined, that means watch list is undefined here. So something's up with our preload for that query. Oh, you know what it is? We forgot to add user into the call. So if we go back into our movies controller, yep, right here, get filtered, we need to add our auth user into there. So we'll go ahead and add auth there. Since we do have an authenticated user, the if was coming through within our card, but we weren't actually populating the user here, so watchlist was never actually getting preloaded. To safeguard that, let's go ahead and jump back into our card and do if auth user and movie.watchlist. Since watchlist will always be an array, if it's populated, we're okay to leave that as is within that if check. All right, jump back into our browser, let's try giving this a refresh, and cool, there we go. So now we have our list. Let's see if any are in our watch list already here. Nope, but let's add one to it, see whether or not that worked, and it sure did. Awesome. So everything does seem to be working. Real quick before we run this out, let's fix our card spacing. So let's just wrap both of our buttons here in a div. So we'll do div class margin top of 4, flex call gap of maybe 2 to add some spacing in between the two buttons if there are two buttons there. And then right here, we just remove that class altogether. Cool. Give that a save, jump back into our browser, and let's see how that looks. Yeah, that's better. Okay, cool.